Okay, guys, so what we're learning about now is the four-stroke engine. Okay, so what you have there, that's what a four-stroke engine looks like. It's a car engine, a few different things you need to look at. So you have different things. Again, these would be timing belts. So there's two belts there, usually the time belt and the fan belt. Okay, that looks to be the fan belt down there. Time belt is the big one there. Dips, again, the oil dipstick. And then, okay, so inside this would be what you call a straight four engine. Okay, so that means that the four cylinders, all of them standing straight up, okay, standing up straight like an eye, or like a fencing post. Okay, standing up straight. Again, how you different things to recognize. Again, if you ever seen the top of a engine, you'll see there's four spark plugs. Even straight away from this photo, you can see there's four outlets for the exhaust manifold. Okay, so that's what it looks like on the outside. On the inside, what it looks like is something like this. Okay, so you have a few key components here I want to go through. Just again, you need to know the function of each of them, you need to know how the engine works, things like that. Okay, so what we're starting off with is, so I'm just gonna go through, work from the top down. So what you have here, guys, is you're gonna start off from the top down. You're gonna start off, so up here at the top you have cams. Okay, so you have these cams here, the red and the blue one. They rotate and they turn rotary motion into reciprocal. Okay, so rotary means turning, reciprocal means it moves it up and down. Okay, so as they turn, they are an egg-shaped cam, so they look something along the lines of this here. So again, as these turn, this sort of stick out part will actually push something. Okay, it'll push it to one side. So the function of a cam is it opens and closes these valves. So as these rotate, they're going to push and close them red and blue valves. Okay, so what they do is they push and close it and again, you can see one is an inlet valve, the other should be an exhaust valve. So one from the left, inlet valve. For the engine, you'll have petrol and air. So again, we're looking at a petrol engine today, we're not looking at a diesel engine, we're looking at a later time. So you have air and fuel coming in there. The other side, the exhaust valve lets out exhaust. Simple enough. Okay, so these act as like taps or gateways or windows, whatever you want to call them. Just the reason why they use valves is they will last much longer than any electronic door or any electronic tap or anything like that. Again, it's all mechanical. A timing belt. So again, you have the crankshaft down here. This actually connects to the clutch and then to the gearbox. This is where you get your power. They are connected to the cams using the timing belt. Okay, so it's all mechanical, so it cannot be wrong. Obviously, if the timing belt goes, that's where things go wrong. Moving on down. This little line here, that is your head gasket. Okay, the line there, so you have the head of the engine block, and your head gasket. So that's where the things go. That's where, if a head gasket goes, that's what happens. It's a little tiny, like a washer, in there, and that tends to, sometimes it's so thin it can crack. The green stuff there, that's meant to represent coolant. Coolant is used to cool the engine. Okay, so cools the engine, and it's made up of water and antifreeze. Okay, so the antifreeze is there to stop it from freezing again. You can think about it like something up here, somewhere there. Again, very narrow walls. If that froze, it expands, it's gonna burst it. Right in the middle, you have a spark plug. Okay, all petrol engines, even any ones that need mix either as well, they are all have a spark plug. Okay, what a spark plug does is it creates a spark, igniting the fuel. Okay, so again, the reason why we need fuel, so it isn't a case of, okay, we feed this engine diesel or petrol and I know lo and behold it starts turning. There's a system to it. Okay, so what happens is you feed in fuel, you get it creates an explosion and pushes this yellow thing, the piston, up and down. Okay, I'll show you in more detail what is going on, but I just want to keep going through the parts. So as I said, guys, you have the yellow thing there, that's a piston. What happens is you let in fuel in here, sits in there, this ignites it, pushes the piston down. Again, the momentum actually puts the piston back, going back up. Again, and that I'll show you how the cycle continues. Again, it's a four-stroke engine, so it does four different steps. You go down, piston, you see these grey lines on the piston, those are piston rings. What they do is they create a better seal between the walls of the engine and the piston. Okay, so to stop again, this would all be oil down here, that's your oil sump. The crank, so the crank is actually slapping into the oil, that's how it lubricates it. Again, you don't want oil coming up into the combustion chamber. If you have a car that's letting out blue diesel or blue smoke, that means there's oil coming up. Again, that could be a head gasket gone or piston rings worn. Again, very, very hard to fix piston rings. Whole engine rebuild needed. And in, like, if you ever look at the Fast and the Furious films, whenever they use NOS, what happens is it actually burns off the piston rings. So the thing about it is, actually, every time they use NOS, they would have had to rebuild the engine again. So that is an incredible cost. Costs about €600-700. Okay, so keep going down. The brown thing in the back there, that's what you call a connecting rod. Conrod, the mechanics would know it as. That connects the crankshaft to the piston. Okay, it connects the crankshaft to the piston. Again, in your older cars, the older cars that manage to reach 300,000 miles, that's one of the first things that'll go on them is the conrods, because they're quite narrow. They are only designed to do 300,000 miles or so. They'll break, and what'll happen is they'll shear straight down the middle. If you're lucky, it'll just batter. It'll actually break somewhere here, and it'll just move around, do no damage. Sometimes they can break up here, and what'll happen is, as it's swinging around, it'll actually push out. It'll actually break its way out through the engine block or the sump. Okay, and down the bottom you have oil sump. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each of the parts. Actually, let me see if this thing is working for me. Probably not. How the engine works. So we're looking at the. Might show us. Okay, so there we go. Engine. Boom. So you can see you have 4 different things in the manifold. There's the engine block. Hopefully it doesn't start showing us every single part. Okay, it's starting to show us every single part. That was the head of the engine you've seen there. Again, the head of the engine, I have no idea what that is. Oh, I imagine the walls. There's a crankshaft. There's your connecting rods, pistons, spark plugs, injectors. Again, the newer cars would all have injectors. Your older cars would have a carburetor, which is, again, the problem with injectors is they can clog. They're very expensive to fix. And a carburetor essentially is just used to blow fuel and air together. Injector just injects a specific amount of fuel. Okay, those are your valves. Again, you can see them. They're run by springs. There's springs holding them there. So as the cam pushes it, once the cam lets it go, the spring pushes it back into place. Okay, so you have your cams, and that there is a camshaft. No, sorry, the first thing was the valves. That is a camshaft. Your timing belt, and that's it. Again, this thing here, that's an exhaust manifold. They tend to crack at the corners there. They tend to be fierce weak at the corners. Okay, so what we have here, guys, is first stroke of the 4-stroke engine. It is very important that you understand what is going on here, that you're able to talk about what's happening. So you can see there, guys, I'll let it keep playing. The piston is going what way? It's going down. The inlet valve, which is up here, that is open. This one here, closed. So again, the fuel and air is just coming in, filling the combustion chamber. Piston going down. Okay, so what it's doing is it's sucking in the fuel and the air. Spark plug is doing nothing. Now, you've seen that there. The valve has just closed. Okay, so the valve is just closed. Now let's see what happened to the piston. What was the piston? So that was the first stroke. So the first stroke is the intake stroke. So it takes in fuel and air. The next one is known as your compression stroke. Compression is, look, piston going up, both the valves are closed. What's going to happen is this fuel and air gets really compressed. Okay, and the reason why it's compressed is because so it will give a bigger explosion. And now we go up. Once the piston reaches the top, that's the end of your compression stroke. So you have your intake stroke, compression stroke. The next thing you have is power. Boom. The spark plug just ignited the compressed fuel. So the reason why we compress the fuel is it gives a bigger explosion, gives you more power. It's also, the bigger that explosion, the more power you're going to get. That's why you have the bigger liter engines have more power, because you have a bigger explosion, you have more fuel in there. Now once that's all burnt, all you have is smoke. Again, you can see the piston going up, out the exhaust valve. It's very important that you're able to mention what's happening to the piston. So again, for the intake, piston going down, inlet valve open, fuel coming in. Again, compression, both valves closed, piston going up, compressing the fuel to give a bigger explosion. Power stroke, both valves closed, spark plug ignites the compressed fuel, powering the piston down. Again, that gives you your power. Exhaust valve open, piston going up, pushing out the exhaust fumes. Again, that's how you describe each of those. Okay, and that is the 4 strokes of the engine. Okay, so I'm just going to scroll down through the different parts. Valves again, yeah, that act as taps for the. Okay, now it's on strike, this thing. The valves act as taps for the air and the exhaust and the oil. So oil sump again is how it's lubricated. Let's go down again. exhaust valve, that's okay, same as the spark plug, ignites the fuel. Okay, so that's one of the things on the list. So it ignites the fuel, sending a thing to it. If you send a current to it, exhaust port, that's okay, it's like a port, it's like a pass-through. A piston catches the explosion. Okay, so the explosion will happen up here. What happens is the piston catches it and gets fired down. So the piston takes a good bit of abuse. Connecting rod connects the piston to the crankshaft. Combustion chamber, that's up here above the piston. That's where all the explosions and stuff happen. Gudgeon pin, they love throwing this one in. The gudgeon pin is this little pin here in the middle. It connects the connecting rod to the piston. They love throwing it in and they'll say name part A, and you have to say, okay, part A is the gudgeon pin. They describe the function of part A. It connects the piston to the connecting rod. Okay, they love pegging it in. It's essentially a bolt. Cam and cam shafts, they open and close the valves. So a cam opens and closes the valves. The cam shaft connects to the time belt. It actually operates several of the cams. There's several cams connected to it. Rod bearing, don't worry about it. It's just a thing with the crankshaft. Again, converts. If you see the reciprocating motion, so reciprocating motion is over back. To rotary is turning. Okay, so the crankshaft converts reciprocating motion to rotary motion or turning motion. Piston rings, as I said, provide a better seal between the piston and the chamber. So again, the stop oil going up into the combustion chamber, the stop oil going up into the chamber, the stop diesel come down into the oil. The 4-stroke, again, as I've gone through this, again, the 4-stroke, we go down. There is induction or intake. So it processes the cylinder with the proper air fuel mixture. So again, air, the intake valve open, exhaust valve closed, piston going down, sucking in the air and fuel. Compression, both valves closed. Piston going up, compressing the air and fuel so we get a bigger explosion. Power, spark plug ignites, both valves closed, piston fired down. This gives us our power. And then you have your exhaust. Okay, so again, piston going up, exhaust valve open, pushing out the fumes. And that's it. Okay, so again, that is the 4-stroke engine. Again, diesel engines, there's actually only one difference between a diesel engine and a petrol engine. Diesel engine is run, or in a petrol engine where you use a spark plug, diesel engines use a glow plug. So a glow plug, it glows red hot under a lot of pressure. So that's how a diesel engine operates. That's really the only difference there. Again, diesel is harder to ignite compared to a petrol. Diesel needs to be vaporized, which means it needs to be heated to over 100 degrees before it will ignite. So the pros of diesels, they're very fuel efficient, they have a very, very long engine span compared to a petrol. Petrol, you're looking at 300,000 miles max. Diesel, you could get a well over 300,000 miles, 400,000 miles. I've seen several cars. The cons with diesel is they have slower acceleration. Put your foot down a diesel, it'll take you maybe 2 seconds to realise, okay, look, this way wants to go. And they're much a higher initial cost. They cost a good bit more, and they're usually a high litre. So again, which means your insurance is going to be way up, and you're not so much the tax. They're actually since they're more efficient. They're better. The tax isn't too bad. So what we were looking at, guys, is the 4-stroke engine. Okay, so the different things. So again, you need to be able to recognize the 4-stroke engine. So if I go back up, I want to show you the 4-stroke engine. So a few things to. Oh, jeez, this is taking me long enough. A few things to recognize in the 4-stroke engine is. Okay, so you need to play spot the difference between the engines, because what they could do at times is they will throw up the engines and they will say name engine type engine type 1, engine type 2. Okay, so there we go. That is the 4-stroke engine. Key things to look out for is you have an oil sump that is only in the 4-stroke engine. You have crank, that's in 2-stroke. Coolant, only in a 4-stroke. Main thing is the valves, they're the main giveaway. They're only in a 4-stroke engine. There's nothing else in the. I'll show you the 2-stroke engine in a second. So 4-stroke engine is used in anything that uses straight fuel. So diesel cars, lawnmowers, your cars, obviously, tractors, anything that takes straight fuel is a 4-stroke engine. On the other hand, 2-stroke engine, anything that takes a mix, when you have to mix oil with the fuel, that is a 2-stroke engine mix. Okay, so I'll show you, I'll go through, so the difference, I'm going to show you the difference in the two. We'll go down as far as the two-stroke engine. Two-stroke engine is a much smaller engine, so think of the size of a chainsaw. The engine of a chainsaw, again, very, very small. Compared to, so there we go, there's a two-stroke engine. Looks something like that. Very, very small. Again, with a four-stroke engine, you need to have more than one, because they're very imbalanced. With a two-stroke engine, it'll manage on its own because it's going twice the speed, so you don't even notice the jitters in it. Okay, so a few things to point out. So again, it has a spark plug. These things here, these are called cooling fins. Okay, so instead of there's no coolant in this cools the engine. Air can go in between these gaps here and cool the engine. You have no valves. You have what you call ports. Okay, so intake port, exhaust port. You have a transfer port. There's no oil sump. Okay, but otherwise the basics are quite similar. Again, four-stroke engine. Again, the parts are the exact same. There's no other parts you need to remember for this one. With a four-stroke engine, this is known as a two-stroke engine. There's two strokes: the upward stroke and the downward stroke. Again, the two of them, it's like, so the forward stroke or the four-stroke engine. So again, you had the intake, as I say, the intake, compression, power, exhaust. With these, they're sort of squeezed. Like this one here is intake and exhaust. This one here is power and compression. So what happens is downward stroke, piston going down. There's fuel and oil in here. So again, why you put oil in the mix is it lubricates the engine. It lubricates all these things here. These would all weld and they'd overheat if they weren't lubricated with oil. So this is all down here. As the piston's going down, it's pushing it along this sort of up this hallway into the chamber. So as this fuel is being pushed in, it's actually pushing out this orangey stuff, which is the exhaust. Okay, the problem with these is why they're inefficient is a lot of the time this will come up and some of the stuff will actually go out. Some of the good fuel will actually go out the exhaust port, which is not efficient. Okay, another thing is see the shape of the piston. That's another giveaway. The reason why it's shaped, again, if you look at the transfer port that's coming up, if there was no dent there, it'd just be going straight out. So it comes up here and it deflects off that up into the top of the chamber. The upward stroke, again, if I describe this, I might give you a bit more insight into it. So with the upward stroke, again, the piston's at the top, it's compressed the fuel, and the thing has ignited. So that's two strokes in the one. When that's up there, air and fuel come in here, and they go down here into what you call the crankcase. So again, this is like the waiting room. They come down here into the waiting room, wait there, oil sticks to all these parts here to get them lubricated, and then once it comes down, look, so you can see the transfer port over there is blocked. Once this comes down, okay, off you go out of the waiting room, hallway into the main arena, and the old stuff, the people that were there are gone, or the fuel that was there is gone. Okay, so that is the two-stroke engine. So you just need to know when it comes to two-stroke engine, all you need to know is what the downward stroke does and upward stroke. So downward stroke, piston comes down, fuel into the combustion chamber, exhaust out. So again, the ports, so again, you can see the piston has blocked the inlet port. The bottom one is always the inlet port, blocks the inlet port, but the exhaust and the transfer are open. Whereas this one here, it's blocked the exhaust and it's blocked the transfer and the inlet is open. Okay, so again, these are ports that let in and let out the new and used fuel. Okay, so guys, don't worry too much about this, just as long as you know the two different strokes. Upward stroke, what's going on? So the downward stroke, actually, sorry, fuel comes from the crankcase up into the combustion chamber, exhaust out, exhaust port. So again, intake port closed. Then the upward stroke is the exhaust and transfer port closed, air into crankcase. Spark plug creates power. Again, that's the best way to describe that there. Or if you want to describe it again, your intake and your exhaust cycle strokes, compression and power. Okay, guys, and just where it comes, I'm just going to go through the. I should have went through this a bit quicker earlier. And the crankshaft, again, I said that reciprocal piston rings, gouging pin, I have valve, again, open and close to let air and let air and fuel in, and let exhaust out. Piston catch the explosion.